Welcome to the Renaissance Re $20,000 Academic Challenge. This afternoon, you will have the unique experience of hearing from two very talented student teams, one from Florida International University and the other from the University of Florida. They will each take 20 minutes to present their research and convince you and the judges that they should be the winner of the $20,000 grand prize. Our judges will then have 10 minutes to ask any questions they may have. Their presentations will be scored based on originality, potential impact of the solution, ease of implementation, value to consumers, and presentation and showmanship. Our illustrious judging panel of judges will have their work cut out for them today, but they are more than up for the task. Let me introduce them. First, we have Mark Wilson, President and CEO of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Leslie Chapman Henderson, Flash President and CEO. Bill Reed, former Director of the National Hurricane Center. And finally, our sponsor for the challenge, unwavering supporter of the disaster mitigation movement, Mr. Steve Weinstein, Senior Vice President, Chief Compliance Officer, and General Counsel and Secretary for Renaissance Re. Another one of our judges was a bit delayed by travel today, but he's going to join us at the end, and that's CNN's John Zarella. And I'd also like to recognize Senator Hayes, who's here with us today, and he's brought a great crew of 9 to 13-year-olds, hammerheads that are part of the LEGO Robotics International team, and we're pleased to have them here. Steve, thanks for joining me. If you would speak for a few minutes on Renaissance Re's 20th anniversary and how that ties into Shark Tank.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the first risk mitigation Shark Tank. And isn't this the coolest thing you've seen in weeks, months, or many quarters? It has exceeded our wildest expectations and hopes, and we haven't even seen the contestants yet. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all you do for the disaster safety movement. Thank you, students. You are our future. Thank you so much for being here and taking your time with us. It's Renaissance Re's 20th anniversary year this year. Happy anniversary, Renaissance Re, and all of my teammates. 20 years ago, we were founded with a vision of helping natural disaster-prone communities like Florida manage their risk with a mix of financial advice, financial services, and science. And that original blend of the most advanced scientific understanding and financial risk management has been the highlight of our commitment to Florida and other communities for our entire 20-year history. But today, although we're really enjoying our 20th anniversary year, and I love seeing the logo, we are not important. You are important, and the student teams are important. I want to congratulate all of them and the other contestants who did not make the finals, but especially the finalists for their hard work over 6 months. You are the future of disaster risk safety and also of the state. And I want to congratulate you for being switched on. You are onto one of the world's big megatrends. We all enjoyed Director Reed's amazing presentation over lunch today. Hurricanes are a big issue in Florida. Florida is the world's biggest exposed area for natural disasters, but we're not alone. There's natural disaster risk all over the world. What Florida has is the bones, the basic architecture to become the next Silicon Valley of global disaster risk management. It has the other universities of the state who are not represented today. It has the nation's best state emergency management organization. It has things like Storm Struck a Tale of Two Homes and Attraction Epcot, which is educating millions of Floridians and international guests about cost-effective ways they can make their families and homes more safe. And it has these student scientists. You look a lot to me, someone who's been around the capital markets for 20 years, like Silicon Valley 20, 25 years ago. So here you are with your proposals, which will have good science with good returns on investments. It's fun to see the way our panel has shaped up, because we have science with Director Reed, business with Mark Wilson, the CEO of the Florida Chamber, and community engagement and communications with the incomparable Leslie Chapman Henderson. So someone will walk away with $20,000 of our money today, but no one will lose. Everyone here is a winner, and I look forward to seeing you battle it out. Thank you for all you've done, and I look forward to judging it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Steve. And on behalf of Flash, thank you for all that you and Renaissance Re do to support the mitigation movement. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you our host for the afternoon, Mr. Bruce McCullen. Bruce?
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun with this, and so the first request I have is that you can call me Wink Trebek, if you would. You probably had enough of it being at lunch, but we're gonna have some great edutainment. Flash is well known for presenting material like this in kind of an edutainment format, and today's no exception, I can tell you that. You've met our judging panel. They're gonna be doing the heavy lifting, but I do have one more judge that I need to introduce. Guess who it is? You. That's right. You'll be using the handheld devices that you have in your seat. Did everybody find that, or somebody sitting on one? We're okay? If you have that in your hand, you're going to provide a score for each team, and you're going to be our fifth judge. And that score is going to be about originality, performance, and showmanship. So when we get to that part of the program, you will be asking you to weigh in on the presentations as well. So now that we all understand all the rules, let's hear from our first team and get right to it. Can I have 20 minutes on the clock, please? They'll have 20 minutes to change your life. So, coming to the stage now, based on a coin toss that occurred in the hallway just a few minutes ago, is our team from the University of Florida. Let's give them a big round of applause and welcome them to the stage. Or not.
Good afternoon. I'm David, and we've got Austin and Dan and Craig Dixon. We're from the University of Florida. We are the MitiGators. Now, we started off by showing you that video from, of course, The Wizard of Oz. It's a classic American tale, story that we all know, that we all love, and I'm going to give you a moment of let the nostalgia sit in, especially for those of you that are about over 50. But it's a great story, and many of us know it. And if you remember the story, so Dorothy is displaced from her home by a tornado, and really the whole focus of the story is on Dorothy. She's trying to get back to her home. She's trying to get back to normal for her. So she goes down the yellow brick road, and has all these different tasks, all these different things that she's trying to do, people to meet, trying to get home. Well, if you remember from the story, it turns out that she finds out that it's not something that she needed to do, some new thing she needed to complete. She actually had the solution with her all along. It was her silver slippers. And so what we see from that is Dorothy didn't need a new solution, right? She had the solution. She just needed to implement it. So what was our purpose in showing that to start out with? Well, Florida also has a problem. Florida is right in the bullseye for hurricane activity. And in Florida, it's not a matter of if a hurricane is going to strike, it's a matter of when a hurricane is going to strike. And if anyone has been and lived in Florida for any number of years, they've probably been impacted by a hurricane. But it's not just hurricanes even. You also look at tornadoes, and Florida actually leads the U.S. in the number of tornadoes per square mile. Between those two, between tornadoes and hurricanes, you have to see Florida is the most susceptible state in the U.S. for wind hazards. But just because we're the most susceptible state in wind hazards, does that mean that we have to lead the nation in wind disasters? Well, I mean, after all, what is a disaster? A disaster is when a natural hazard impacts a region that's not prepared to resist that hazard. Now, you may be thinking, wait, hold on a second. We live in Florida, right? I mean, we've got the best building codes. We got an A+. We are ready to go. Bring on that hurricane. We got it. We got the best building codes. And that's true. We do have the best building codes. They changed a lot after Hurricane Andrew. Yet, we still have a problem. And is that problem that the building codes don't work, or what's going on here? Austin, share with the audience, what's the problem that we still have?
Well, the building codes definitely work. Look at this photo. Two homes, not necessarily all that different from each other, yet you can see they fared quite differently during Hurricane Charlie. It's not a staged photo. The home in the back is not made of concrete. It just has this connector strapping the roof to the walls and the other connector securing the foundation. It's not complicated, but look at the difference. Still, Florida has a problem. Anyone want to guess how many homes in Florida were built to the new building code changes? 7 out of 10 homes were built before the 1994 building code changes. That means over 6.3 million homes are just waiting for the next hurricane to come along before they look like that house in the front. That's over $3 trillion in exposed homes. This map shows the percentage of homes in each county that were built before these building code changes. I know it's a pretty map, but don't be distracted. Look at the average age of the homes in each of these counties. They all tell the same story. Despite our strong building codes, we're a disaster waiting to happen. I know what you're thinking. Well, we have insurance. We'll rebuild. We'll repair. It'll be as good as new. But will it? What if your home looked like this? What if it was your family pictures? What if it was the drawings your kids painted in school ruined? Having to start over, having to take time off work to clean up. These disasters impact our lives on a personal level. No. You know what you're thinking? Well, we have to improve our community resilience. We have to bounce back after a disaster. Well, what if we didn't have to fall so far? I mean, 90% of the disaster relief efforts today are spent on responding to a disaster and only 10% on preparation. Oh, we should just remove the disasters altogether. We have to strengthen our homes to withstand these disasters, but that means, well, what do we do to do that? What do we do to strengthen those 6.3 million homes at risk today? Do we have to come up with some new retrofit, some new solution, or like Dorothy's predicament, do the solutions already exist? In fact, they do, and they've existed for quite some time. The four of us have personally investigated many such solutions. We've studied roof-to-wall connections, water ingress, tile roofs, shingle failures, and we know solutions exist. Many other universities, just like us, are studying the same things, researching the same solutions, and they work. The solutions work. So Dan, why are all these universities studying these solutions, but they're not being implemented?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So as engineers and scientists, this is the way we're trained to think. We identify the problem, we test a proposed solution, and then we publish the results. And then what happens? We rely on groups like Flash to get the information into the community and to the homeowners that it stands to benefit. And we propose that we change that paradigm. We actually do that in the university setting. We start to get our information to the homeowners, to the people that need it most. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to be smart about it. We're going to think about people and how they think. And to do that, we got to think about the information age that we live in. We are constantly bombarded with information in our daily lives from every single direction. And it's funny, I was actually talking with Dr. Pravat last night, and I was telling him how when I walk through campus, I'm constantly getting hit with people throwing flyers and buttons and stickers and all kinds of advertising stuff at me. And I've kind of just made up my mind that I'll just say no to every single one every time, because otherwise I'll be distracted and I'll be late to class every single time. And so someone could throw a winning lottery ticket at me and I would still say no. And we all do this. We all do this without even thinking about it. There's so much information out there that we just automatically hide ourselves from it and create these bubbles to keep from being distracted. And so how do we get our mitigation information into the community and past these bubbles? Well, again, we got to be smart about it. We got to think, when are people willing to accept that information? And when are they going to take that in? And we think there's inflection points in people's lives when they actually take down that bubble and start reaching out for information. Our plan is to be there when they do that. And so these inflection points may be times when you're looking for a car, times when you're, it's about to be hurricane season, you're looking to prepare for your home, you're reaching out for information on the best way to do that. Times when you're buying a home, you're reaching out on information on, which home is better than another, which home is going to withstand a hurricane better than another. You're looking for information, and our plan is to be there. And so, what do we do when we look for information these days? What do we do? David?
I think you got the answer to that as well. There's an app for that, right? We've all heard that commercial. Apple made it famous, and it's actually very true. I'm actually gonna prove it to you right here. We've got Michael here. How you doing today, Michael? Good. All right, so let's say you're watching our presentation right now and you're like, you know what, I really like that. I'm going to take all these guys out for dinner afterwards, which would be a fantastic idea, actually, just pointing it out. Let's say he does that, and, you know, there's a cold front coming through Florida or something, so he's like, well, what's the weather going to be like? Do I need to bring an umbrella? Do I need to bring a jacket? What's it going to be? So if you need that information, Michael, where are you going to go? Right. He's going to pull out a smartphone. We all have them, and he's going to pull up an app, and it's going to do what? It's going to give him personalized information when he wants it, and it's going to give him information that he can make a decision based on, right? We do that all the time for all sorts of things. We do it for weather. We do it for sports. We do it for finances. We do it for news, all sorts of things. We're going now to our smartphones more than ever. It's changed so much in the last couple of years. We go there for information because, one, it's readily available. When we want it to be available, we go there and we get it. And then also, it's personalized. It's personalized to our location. For instance, we talked about weather. Let's say you pull it up and it gives that. Do you really care at that point what the national average of the weather is? Do you care what the weather's like in Colorado? No, you want that right there, right where you are. You want that where you are so you can make a decision based off it. Well, let's change a little bit and kind of take that same thought over to our houses, right? I mean, the house is the single largest investment most of us are ever going to make in our life. And when we go to buy a house, what are the type of things we look for a lot of times? We'll look for, say, what's the price of the house? What's the square footage? What's the actual value? Where's it at? The schools in the area and so forth. And we make decisions based off of that. But there's something missing so many times when people go to look for a house, and that's risk. What risk am I getting? What risk am I getting myself into with this house? How strong is it? It's like, I love the analogy of, say, a car crash. When you go to buy a car, right, what's one of the things that are prominently displayed? It's what's the crash rating. You see even commercials, it's promoted. What's the crash rating of this car? It's risk. It's what risk are you accepting when you buy that car? And some are better than others. So if we have that for our cars, why don't we have a crash rating for our house? What's keeping us from having that? So Craig, why don't we have a crash rating for our house?
Well, it's pretty simple. It just hasn't been developed yet. And the issue is that homeowners, they buy a house, they think, okay, it's lovely, it has granite countertops, and they don't know what their risk is until the hazard comes through. So now, what if I told you that the silver slipper is in this room? What if I told you that we are ready to go? Go ahead, look under your chair. No, seriously, look under your chair. Everyone, look under your chair. You'll find something attached to the bottom, to the frame. We are very, very proud to introduce our proposition for a mobile web application entitled Resilient Residence, or ResRe. So now you may say to yourself, okay, great, they just proposed something. What in the world, how is this going to work? Well, we're going to take my mom. She was absolutely horrified when I told her I'm going to show her on this screen, but she still smiled. So she's 63. My brother, my sister, and myself, we just moved out of the house. She says, I want to downsize, but I want to stay in the same area, so I'm going to look for a new house. She finds a house. It's lovely. It's built in 1976. Granite countertops. There's a pool in the back. Great. She loves being in the pool. And she comes to me and she says, Craig, what's going to happen when the storm comes? And I say, well, Mom, excellent that you just asked, because we have something that just came out. Go to the App Store right now and download it. So what is this? Well, she downloads the application, as you can see here. She's somewhat technologically savvy, but our thought is, we're going to focus this to the consumer, to everyone. So the process is simple. She defines what her house is, the key components, the roof covering, the roof to wall, the doors, the windows. She can even hire a home inspector. During those times of inflection points, you want to know what your risk is. These are the key points. There are additional points. So after she implements this on a graphical, easy-to-use interface, she gets out two key things. Number one, the risk of the structure as it exists today. How does this work? Well, the technical foundation is based upon really the research that's not only been done on this stage, but throughout the entire room. It's contained inside the Florida Public Hurricane Loss Model. This model is vetted, it's approved, and it's being implemented currently in the state of Florida. It's a risk-based, adaptable vulnerability assessment for structures. So how would this work? Okay, so for example, my mom inputs this house. She inputs baseline parameters, which you see here. It's risk versus wind speed. So the concept is simple. She inputs the age of the house, its location, number of stories, roof shape. You get a baseline structure. And then she goes into the second level, which essentially defines what the key components are to define the vulnerability of the house. So 6 penny nails, toenail roof-to-wall connection, 15-year-old shingle roof covering. Now we all know these are somewhat weaker type constructed methods. But she has storm shutters, so that's a positive. So guess what she gets out? She gets the exact risk that her structure has as it exists today. 130 represents the design wind speed at her location in Seminole County, Florida. The second and the key part to this program, the part where we're engaging people, is that we provide them with the most beneficial retrofit methods. So for example, for her house, replace the roof covering, add sheathing fasteners, and go the extra step. Put in straps on that roof to wall. And guess what? A reduction of 40 to 50% of her risk in that structure. Now, she has that information. We also link her with contractors in the area which can provide this service to not only give her a quote immediately, but do the work. So, Daniel, why in the world would someone want to use this, and how are we going to get our word out?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So it goes back to inflection points. This is what I talked about earlier. We got to be smart about this. People have that bubble. They don't want the information in, and we got to make sure that we're there getting this app in when they're reaching out for information. And so we're going to do this in 3 different ways. First, we're going to be in social media. We're going to have a big presence in social media. This is a part of our daily lives. I mean, it's the generation that we live in. We speak this language. We understand it. So we're going to use targeted ads, and we're going to have a presence in social media to get the word out when people are looking for information. Secondly, we're going to use our existing media partners. Each one of these groups comes to our lab on a regular basis looking for information on new mitigation techniques, what's going on in the research setting, how are we handling the vulnerability of our homes. And we're going to promote our app through these outlets. And then thirdly, we're going to work with existing community outreach organizations like Flash, ATC, FEMA. I did my homework. I think there might be someone in the group here from Home Depot. We'd like to work with you to get the word out and to get people understanding that there is something out there for them to use. And so our application is marketable, it's technically sound, and the only thing left to answer is how are we going to implement this? And Austin's going to tell you.
Well, it's pretty simple. Step 1, we form an advisory committee with representatives from academia, public outreach, industry to ensure quality throughout the development process. 2, and this is where the bulk of the $20,000 will go into working with a professional app developer to release an app on multiple platforms, iOS, Android, and PC. 3, we're going to leverage the support, and this is the big one here. We're going to leverage the support from Flash and Renaissance Re and our advisory committee to generate additional funding from other organizations, potential stakeholders for long-term implementation. We're going to convince them that this is the solution, this is the way forward, and we'll need that additional funding to support servers, technical support, upgrades to include new research, new retrofits. And 4, we're going to have a big media push to raise awareness and full release of the app by the start of hurricane season next year. So let's take a recap for a second. Dave addressed the problem. There's over 6.3 million homes in Florida at risk despite our strong building codes. Dan explained how, because of the era that we live in of information overload, many homeowners are just unaware of the solutions that already exist, that we don't need a new solution, some new invention, that we just need to implement what already works. And Craig explained how our unique solution addresses both of those issues and motivates the homeowners to invest in their home through personalized, specific information. Okay, so you give us the money, we build the app, we market it, we raise the necessary funds. Craig, what's the future of Florida look like?
We've got 1 minute. I'll be very quick. Envision this. Florida homeowners with the ability to understand their personal risk and understand how to act on that to reduce their risk. So what does that mean? Well, let's think about it at a community or a state level. If we don't have to spend as much money cleaning up after storms because residents engage themselves in preparing themselves before the storm, that means we have more money for education, for roads, for infrastructure, things that we need to really be spending money on. Not cleaning up homes from 1976 that were blown down because they had great granite countertops, but they didn't have a good roof-to-wall connection. We are going to just say thank you very much to Renaissance Re and Flash because, you know, really this provoked thought in all four of us. You know, we said, oh, we don't want to come up with just some solution. We want to really think, what's the thing that's different, that's unique? Our advisors as well, we really want to thank because they also pushed us. They put us in that realm where we really had to seek what is it that we were going to propose. And we got so excited about this. We are the MitiGators. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you, mitigators. We're going to put 10 minutes on the clock for questions from either our distinguished judging panel or any member of the audience, if I'm not mistaken. So does anybody have any clarification or other? Turn the house lights up a little bit. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, one, is this on?
Yes.
Okay, I'm deaf. When the homeowner is trying to assess the behind the walls construction, what kind of straps, nails, etc., how does the app help them do that?
You want me to answer? Yeah, go ahead. Well, so we've thought about this, obviously. That's a key one. So the first level is, do you know what the component is? Yes or no? If they don't know, they're not allowed to just say no, necessarily. It's then prompted to give them useful information on how they may be able to understand what that component is. So, for example, if it's a roof-to-wall connection, and they go in the attic, or they hire a home inspector, that's the other part to that. But if they go in the attic and they say, I'm not sure if it's a toenail or a clip or a strap, we then provide them with pictures and descriptions of what that looks like. Now, say they don't know. They just flat out have no idea. We have what's called baseline parameters. So if the home was built in, say, 1976, we know it's probably going to be a toenail connection. So we make that a model assumption. Obviously, the more robust model is going to be the one where the user can best define the input parameters.
The other point I would make on top of that is that, especially here in Florida, where we're dealing with hurricanes and so forth, in a lot of the interior regions, and a lot of the reduction in risk comes from the building envelope and the roof-to-wall connections and so forth, not as much, say, the anchor bolts and that sort of thing. So those are the ones that are really hard for just an average user to go find out what anchor bolts they have in their house or if they even have them, that sort of thing. But the building envelope, the garage doors, the windows, the shingles, how old the house is, even the roof-to-wall connections are a little bit more accessible, and those also happen to be the ones that are the most key in reducing the risk here in Florida, especially in the more interior regions.
Thank you.
So I have a question here. The guys, absolutely great job. The command of the facts, the way you tied logic and emotion together, talking about losing children's artwork, that was really good. And the command of the facts, how many homes, what the value is, that was fantastic. My concern is no one in Florida knows that. So all of these homeowners, they don't know that that's the situation, right? So how in the world does this idea get to people who either don't care or don't know?
Well, I'll go ahead and take that. And so that kind of goes back to the inflection points. We can't force people to do anything. We can have as many conferences as we want. We can talk about the mitigation techniques that we've come up with, but we can't make people do this. They have to choose to on their own free will. And so our app is more about changing the culture of mitigation to get homeowners to take a personal responsibility for the vulnerability of their home. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not something that all of a sudden they're going to be like, okay, everybody's going to use it. But it's something that we're going to start a change and hope that in the future it picks up and we all get behind this and start moving it in that direction. So that is a great question. And one of the ways that we're going to hopefully facilitate having homeowners take an active role is to focus on those inflection points at times when they're reaching out for information and really just have it available to them. Make it easy for them to pick it up and use it.
Yeah. Because one point to tag along with that is, say, here in Florida, I talked about how often we have hurricanes that hit. Well, it's actually been, 8, 9 years since we've had a major hurricane hit. And so one of those inflection points that we've really targeted are, say, when a hurricane does come into Florida. Because at that point, you got everybody's attention then. Because the whole state is all of a sudden aware and wondering how at risk their house is. Or if they see their house get destroyed or their neighbor's house get destroyed, all of a sudden that's much more priority. So if we have an application like this and we have the media partnerships that we already have, those are perfect opportunities that then when they're reaching out for information, we have something to give them that they can personally use and engage them and give them that personal ownership that we all want them to take.
I have a question about how it could be adapted. We spent some time this morning talking about the millennial generation and the marketplace impact that you have today and that will explode soon. Is there any way that the app could be adapted for you and your generation as you look at options for renting? Just to build in that culture of prevention in terms of choosing the right place. Because is this something that you could adapt to questions about small apartment buildings or even small homes in Gainesville or any community that could help people just start down the path of enlightenment?
Absolutely. And that's the thing we're the most excited about, is that since we're using the Florida Hurricane Public Loss Model, it is so adaptable. It already has all this. We're using it, what we presented right now was for residential structures, but they have the same thing for apartment buildings, for commercial structures, and so forth. It's completely easy to implement that and expand the application to more than just single-family homes and expand it to apartments and so forth and be able to reach that target audience as well.
And it's a great question because it kind of ties into our first target for implementation, which is setting up an oversight committee. And that's basically getting representatives from all the groups that are vested here and getting that information to us and all working together on this and getting the input and seeing where we need to go with it and what we need to do to make it work. And so, questions like that are something that we certainly address and try and make the app work to do.
And additionally, in the future, because it's a model that's adaptable, it wouldn't just be adaptable to the type of structure, but you can also adapt to different types of hazards, like surge or floods, or provide it in different languages so that anybody that can use it will be able to use it.
Anybody else?
Great presentation, MitiGators. I like the Res Re. It feels like a reinsurance company. Hat tip noted. I like the sneakers. Brand identification is important in the business world as well as in the consumer engagement world. I've got 2 questions. Question 1. How long does it take someone to go through, and is it much longer than it takes my mother to turn on her VCR? But more seriously, have you tested how long are the consumers willing to spend with this before they get to the end point? And secondly, a human life is as valuable, means as much wherever that life is and wherever it's exposed, whether it's the Central Florida or New Jersey or the Philippines. We have gone 8 years at a landfalling name store in Florida, the longest time in the historical record, but Sandy hit New Jersey last year and we lost a lot of lives in the Philippines just this month. Do you have a vision and a plan to potentially scale it nationally and ultimately globally, and what does that look like?
Well, I think to answer your second question first, yes. I mean, we're focusing on Florida. That was what we were tasked to do. But we see this because we can go into multi-peril. But even if we just focus on wind hazards, what's really neat about this is it can be implemented really anywhere. I mean, if you think about it, if you understand what the vernacular architecture is of the region, so Philippines or Texas, and you have a scientifically based model on that that's flexible, like what we're using, definitely. I think it's scalable. I think that's the main question. Our goal, obviously, is to focus first in Florida, because that's the initial task. But, you know, you have to start lighting the flame and then it catching. And we see it starting here in Florida, but we see it spreading everywhere else.
And I'll jump in here. It's actually interesting that you said that, because I'm actually right now working on writing a grant to go to Australia and work with Dr. Henderson and a few other scientists there on, you know, they don't have a public loss model like we do, but they have private models. And so we've talked about me going over there with this grant and possibly developing the model that may be used for an application like this there. And actually the application's due Monday, so I've been spending a lot of time on this. But, you know, after this, I'll probably go back to working on that. But yes, we're looking there. I mean, it's a big idea, and we really think the possibilities are endless.
And the first question, if you remind,
Yeah,
I'll let you answer that.
Does it take as long as it takes to play World of Warcraft, or can you get consumer satisfaction in 5 minutes?
No, I mean, that's one of the reasons where we really want to work with a professional application development company. And we realize that that's probably going to take a large portion of the $20,000 that we would get. But it's very important because we have to have something that's intuitive. We can't, the user cannot be fighting the app. I mean, we know they're already kind of resistant to this, and it's kind of new, I'm going to get into it. If they're having to fight the app and it takes a lot of time to do it, I mean, the parameters that they need to input are not that complicated. Like in terms of if you know what you're putting in, I mean, it should literally take you, 30 seconds, a minute to put that in there. That shouldn't be an issue at all. But it's more about getting an intuitive, professional-looking app that's able to really engage the user in that.
And also, I'll just finish up by saying that's something that obviously is a high priority for us. That will be kind of an iterative process. You know, we'll come out with a prototype, work through it, see how people respond to it, and then adapt it from there to try and make that happen. That's obviously important to us.
I have one last question. You guys put a lot of thought into this, and you've talked a lot about what you hope would happen with it, and you've talked about all the things that could go right. Anytime we create something new, there's also the thought about, so what's wrong with this? What could go wrong? What would you be worried about as you tried to move this forward?
I think to answer number one, the reason we're really confident about this is because the model exists, the parameters are set, we have it ready to deploy. So on the implementation side, what we were talking about with the iterative method, how do we come up with the process to get the user to be able to use that in an effective manner? I think that's where I see our biggest holdup. It's not necessarily in, well, will the model work? We know it works, and it's being implemented now in the state of Florida. So really, it's in the development, and that's why we want to put all of our resources in that arena, because we see that as being kind of the place where we could get tripped up in the development of this proposed idea.
Right, but that, and then also on top of that, though, I mean, it's really kind of the same issue that I think you were all talking about this morning in terms of, I mean, it's issues that a lot of people, that organizations, Flash, IBHS, that have in trying to actually engage homeowners to actually care about this stuff. And so probably the biggest worry as well would be, if we, don't, for whatever reason we have trouble with that iterative procedure or so forth and getting it out, it's almost like, do we just have one chance to have a user, actually use the thing and have a good impression and tell somebody else about it? Or will they come back to it? If, it's very key that we have a strong solution out there for that first prototype. And then again, targeting them with ads through Google and Facebook and so forth at those inflection points, that they're actually aware of it and then can use it, tell their friends and so forth, and actually get that message out.
All right, that's going to have to be it. They went over by about 2 minutes. We'll be giving the other team 2 minutes more on their questions, so 12 minutes. Thank you. Let's give these guys a big round of applause. Outstanding. Outstanding. Now, our students aren't the only folks today that are going to get to play the game and have some fun. We're going to give everybody in this room a chance to win while the second team gets ready to go.